Do you know the story behind your zodiac sign? You might not have known that the story behind Virgo actually relates to a goddess. Her name was Estrella, the goddess of purity and innocence, and her story begins when Prometheus stole fire from the gods. Afterwards, Zeus decided to punish mankind by sending Pandora's box. But the story of Pandora's box actually leads to how Virgo came to be. Pandora was unable to resist her own curiosity and opened Pandora's box, which contained evilness, crime, hatred, and other abominations. At the bottom of the box was hope, which didn't escape. But that's not all. Opening Pandora's box also caused a mass exit of immortals and gods. Here's where Virgo comes in. So the goddess Estrella was the last to leave, and as she left Earth, she watched the sky every night in hopes of one day returning. She had faith that mankind would be able to defeat all the evils of Pandora's box. The myth says that Estrella fled the wickedness unleashed onto Earth, and she ascended into heaven to become the constellation of Virgo, constantly wishing and waiting for the day that she would be able to return to Earth. But which zodiac sign should I talk about next? Follow to see the rest of the series.
Story of the time my neighbor tried to pierce my belly button when I was 8. So you guys know an awful lot about, my neighbor's situation. She was known as the bully of our street. So anyway, one day she's like, okay, we're gonna play kickball. And I hated playing kickball because you know what kickball was to her? Having me stand behind a tree while she kicked the ball at me. Repeatedly. And you know why I had to stand behind a tree? So that neither of our parents would be able to see what she was doing. So obviously I was like, no, I don't want to play kickball. And she was like, we'll either play kickball or we'll play house. And I was like, okay, let's play house. So we go up to her room unsupervised with the door closed. And she pulls out her toenail clipper. And she tells me to pull up my shirt. I was like, absolutely not until you tell me what you're doing with that toenail clipper in your hand. She started convincing me that it wouldn't hurt and that it'll be a pretty belly ring when we're done. And I didn't know what a belly ring was. And she said an earring for your belly button. So I was like, oh, okay, word. Didn't go home with a belly ring.
My mother-in-law is super passive-aggressive, rude, and disorganized. Leading up to my wedding, she always criticized me about my weight. After our wedding, she was kind enough to offer to store some of our wedding stuff. A year later, my mother-in-law announces that she's going to do a big vow renewal celebration. Thought it was a bit ridiculous for a 65-year-old woman on her third marriage, but hey, it's her money. As the ceremony starts, the bridesmaids come down, and then enters the bride, wearing my dress. At this point, I'm raging. My husband and I confront her after the ceremony where she denies and says I'm delusional for thinking it's my dress. I tell my husband we're leaving, but she starts crying and begging us to stay, swearing it's not the same gown. The next day, we go to her house to get the wedding stuff she stored. She gives us everything besides the dress, saying she lost it. After lots of screaming on my end and threats, she finally gets my dress. Lo and behold, it's the same dress she wore last night, except for the alteration of the corset and complete with her sweat and food stain from the night before. She starts sobbing and saying she thought it would look better on her because she's been working out so much and how she couldn't afford a new dress. I can now never wear my dress because she altered it to her size. When my grandma passed away, she left each of her grandkids money to put them through college debt-free. But this fund stayed in our parents' names until we turned 18. My sister got pregnant her sophomore year of high school. She was panicking about college. The baby daddy left and she hasn't tried to find him to get child support. All of that stress caused a hard, complicated pregnancy, but both are okay. She graduated this last December with about $2,000 in debt. I figured she used all the money grandma left for her pregnancy and had to take out a loan. I got accepted to my dream college, but my mom was insistent that I stay local to save money. I told her grandma left me more than enough, but that's when she told me. They used all the money that was supposed to go to me to take care of my sister and her kid and her expensive pregnancy. I broke down and just lost it crying. I was shouting how they screwed me over for the kid that fucked up. My sister got upset and asked me if I'd rather have had her live on the street unable to raise her child so I can go to college and have a good life. I said yes, it's not fair that she fucked up, got drunk, and slept with so many guys she doesn't know who the baby daddy is. But I'm the one who has to be punished for it. The argument got too heated, so I left. Did I go too far? I feel screwed over because I'm being punished despite being the one that followed the rules. I've been 100% financially independent from my parents since the day I graduated college. I have a sister who is about a decade older than me, and my parents promised each of us a set amount of money towards our weddings. My sister used this money to have a big, beautiful wedding, and now it's my turn to get married. But my parents have admitted that they gave away the money they had saved for my wedding to my sister. My sister, a mother of one, had a series of health problems and had to freeze her eggs if she ever wanted to have another child. She didn't have the money and only had a few weeks before her hysterectomy, so she asked my parents for the $13,000, which they obviously gave her. I know I sound selfish for prioritizing my wedding over her fertility, but she was 36 when she got the diagnosis. There was no telling how long it would take for her health to recover, and it would be years before they could even afford supporting another infant. I knew she would never have the means to use those eggs before she was 40, and she has made it very clear that she wouldn't want to have an infant at that age. In my opinion, she acted in panic and wanted a safety net that she knew she would never use. But I'm still upset that now I won't be able to have much of a wedding because I've been counting on the funds my parents had promised. I'm not upset that they gave it to her, but I am upset that they gave it to her knowing nothing would come of it. They traded my wedding day for her brief peace of mind. So, am I overreacting? Am I the asshole?
If you ever want to wear a wig, don't do what she did. Talia bought a wig one day that didn't fit, but instead of returning it, she did something that quickly became terrifying. She came up with an unusual idea. This was her first mistake. She searched for ways to alter the wig herself. Then she went into her mother's room, took out a sewing kit, and began working. But Talia actually decided to put the wig on first and sew it in front of a mirror. She thought this would make sure the size was perfect. Afterwards, she was actually really satisfied with the result. Then that night, Talia went to take the wig off, but the wig seemed to feel much tighter than before. But she had school early tomorrow, so with one pull, she took the wig off. Then, without looking, she put it in her closet. That night, she woke up to a wet sound ringing in her ear. She tried to go back to sleep, but realized that her dog had come onto her bed. She pet her dog and went back to sleep. It wasn't a big deal. But the next morning, she noticed something strange in her closet. The wig didn't look the way it did before. It was covered in pieces of blood and skin. Then Talia went into the bedroom and turned around. She realized that she had sewn her own scalp into the wig, then ripped it off. In the back of her head, she could see her own skull. Then she realized why there was a wet sound ringing in her ears last night, and she began screaming.
Storytime about how my blind date hid in my closet for 8 hours. Disclaimer, this is not my storytime, it was sent to me on Instagram. So I'm in my late 20s and I've been looking for a boyfriend for years now. I started using dating apps, but none of that worked. Recently, my boyfriend started dating this really cool guy. He told me he had a really good friend and that he thought they should set me up. Of course, I had never met this guy before. I didn't know if he had social media. I didn't know anything about him. My sister and her boyfriend set up the whole thing. Oh yeah, and my sister told me that he was a doctor, he owned a boat, and loved golfing. So I got ready for the date and I showed up to the restaurant. Right away he comes over and says hi to me. He knew that I would be wearing a pink shirt. We sat down to eat and we basically stayed at the restaurant for 3 hours just talking and having fun. We talked about a bunch of stuff and towards the end of the date, he gave me a kiss and asked me out again. I said yes. We said goodbye and I went home. Then I decided to go get ice cream and I went back home. I watched some TV, went to sleep. The next morning I'm getting ready, I open my closet door and he jumps out.
Today's my niece's birthday and she just went to college, so I thought I'd get her a laptop for her birthday. Now, I'm a student myself, but I still want to give her something special, so I searched for a great used laptop and I found a decent Toshiba. I sold my PSP and some other things so I can afford it. So there we were at the dinner table opening presents and she opened mine and had this grim look on her face. This is it? I thought you'd buy me a brand new one. No, I can't afford it. It's the best I can do. Well, I want a brand new one, not this. This sucks. Worst present ever. She then shoved the laptop and box across the table and it fell on the floor. I picked it up and walked out, and my cousin tried to stop me, but I just said I would never give her anything ever again. She even had the nerve to call back and ask for the laptop. What is the most ungrateful thing you've seen?
So I literally thought people were joking when they were talking about stepsisters getting with their stepbrothers. Turns out it's not a joke, and I just found out that my boyfriend cheated on me with his stepsister. When I was a freshman in high school, I got into a lot of trouble and ended up getting my phone taken away for 6 months and had no social media for a year. My parents literally didn't allow me to have Snapchat until the summer before my senior year. But I was allowed to have an Instagram, so the moment that I was allowed to have my socials back, I made an update on my story. And within a few hours, a boy that I had been talking to before I got my phone taken away swiped up. We started messaging, talking again, hitting it off all over again. And even though he lived about 2.5 hours away, within a week we started dating. I actually had a few other friends that were dating guys in the same town, so I was like, if they can, so can I. After dating him for a few months, I decided to invite him over to my dad so that they could meet. Both my dad and him hit it right off the bat. Chef's kiss. Also, we can call this guy Darren. I noticed that he was super weird with his phone and he would put it in his pocket anytime I was near. I asked him what that was about and he was like, well, I just don't want to be on my phone. It seems rude. It seemed like a logical response, so I brushed it off. But the next day, a girl messaged me saying that she was dating Darren.
Did you and your parents ever play games together? When Jasmine was younger, something strange happened. One night, her mother checked up on her while she was sleeping, but it wasn't the way that you usually think. She woke up in the middle of the night with a strange feeling that someone or something had been watching her. She looked up and saw that her mother was just standing there, smiling and staring at her with her eyes unnaturally wide open. Jasmine asked what she was doing up in the middle of the night, and her mother replied, "I'm watching you sleep." Jasmine knew something was wrong. They kept staring at each other and neither of them blinked. Jasmine somehow knew they were playing a game together, a game to see who would blink first. But what would happen if Jasmine blinked? She was terrified to find out. This figure in her bedroom was not her mother. It was in her eyes. It held something terrifying, something inhuman. Soon, this version of her mother began moving backwards, without blinking, turning around, or breaking eye contact. She just moved back until she reached Jasmine's closet, then opened the door and stepped inside, as if she'd been staying there this entire time. Jasmine kept staring at the closet, and without breaking eye contact, ran to her parents' room. There, she saw her mother on her bed, sleeping peacefully.
I work as an assistant for a really big fashion company. I had a defective wedding dress and my boss asked if I knew anyone we could give it to. My best friend recently got engaged, so it was perfect. When she posted on Instagram to thank me and my boss, my family caught wind of it, and that's when the influx of calls came. I do not have a good relationship with my family. My parents kicked me out when I was 16 after I came out to them, and my sister wasn't much better. They demanded to know why I gave the dress to my friend and not to my sister. I didn't even know she was engaged. They suggested I try to take it back from my friend, as family should always come first. My sister even tried to call my boss to complain. I just got off the phone with my mom, and this is how the conversation went. She says my sister is very upset about the dress, and I told her she needs to get over it. My mom says I can make it up to them by giving her another dress. I posted one last night on my Instagram. It's a $12,000 dress, and that's the one my sister wants. And I told her, you expect me to give you a $12,000 dress when you kicked me out when I was 16? My mom says, that was a long time ago, and we're talking about your sister, not me. When I refused to give the dress, my mom says the least I can do is help her buy one. At this point, I hang up, and I've been avoiding them since then.
This is a story of the time that I caught my neighbor's mom talking smack about me. So I don't know about you guys, but every single Wednesday in my middle school, we would have a bagel sale. And some people's parents would come in to help out. And my neighbor's mom was one of those parents. And I had a best friend at the time whose mom would also work at the bagel sales. But this best friend of mine, her mom never let us hang out with each other because she felt that I was a bad influence on her. When in reality, it was the complete opposite. She was the one that snuck the boys in her house, if you guys remember that story time, where they peed in a flower pot. So basically her mom wouldn't let us hang out. And sometimes my friend would go with her mom in the morning, basically as a ride to school, and to help out with the bagels too. And one day when she went in with her mom, my neighbor's mom also was there too. So my friend starts eavesdropping into their conversation, and my friend's mom brings me up and says how much of a bad kid I am and a bad influence. And my neighbor's mom was like, oh wow, that's my neighbor, like we always suspected something bad about her, our whole entire neighborhood knows this about her, basically making stuff up about me. So then I go home crying, tell my mom. If anyone's wanting to know how to get revenge on someone who spread rumors about you, listen to this story and it may come in handy. So I had a friend that we can call Miranda who was obsessed with me. I was genuinely friends with her, but she would never give me a break. I could not get a breather from her at any point in time. Everywhere I went, she went. And this girl would actually get so upset with me anytime I would go over to another friend's house. I knew she was really insecure and just trying to get attention, so I tried to be patient with her. However, one day I just could not take it anymore. I got into a massive fight with her over how overprotective she is. I literally said, you are a stage 5 clinger. And in response, this girl ended up joining my basketball and softball team, which I've been on for forever. She told her mom that I was bullying her, which was a complete lie, but then her mom went to the coaches. She got me kicked off the team and then continued to spread rumors about me. I ended up losing my best friends and even my boyfriend over the rumors that she spread about me. So that's when I decided to get revenge. So I decided that I was going to send her over an apology gift with makeup in it, which was a mix of drugstore items and poison. Story of the time the owners of my school left a fake review on my Google account. So then I noticed that I signed into my Google account on Friday, and that's when the review was posted. It was posted at 4:45, which we got out of school at 4:30. So at this point, I was 100% positive that one of the owners of my school had written this fake review under my name, which is illegal. So I go into the office, and mind you, the owners of the school were husband and wife. And on Monday mornings, only the wife was there. So I go to her office and I'm like, hey, I'm here to talk to you about this review that was written underneath my name, but I never wrote it. And she pretended like I didn't just say that I didn't write it. And she was like, thank you so much. That was so kind of you. We're so happy to hear the good feedback. And I was like, yeah, but I didn't write it. And for a while, it was just us going back and forth, her playing stupid and me being like, I didn't write it. So then she calls her husband, puts him on speakerphone, and he proceeds to thank me for the review that I didn't write. And we go back and forth, and he plays stupid too, until I finally snapped and I was like, I didn't write the review and one of you did. And he was like, listen, if you don't feel this way about our school, then you could delete your review.
What are you willing to do to stay young forever? Once there was a beautiful Malaysian woman, but she was never quite satisfied with her appearance. So she decided to go to a shaman who told her that through black magic and rituals, she could be young and beautiful forever. He gave her a potion to drink and told her that she couldn't look in the mirror for 30 days. However, this woman was curious. Every time she touched her face, she could feel her wrinkles disappearing. Everyone she met told her that she looked great. So on the 29th day, her curiosity was too much. So she took a glimpse of herself in the mirror. The mirror instantly cracked and so did her face. She turned into a horrible monster, all because of her curiosity. So she went back to the shaman, hoping that he could help her reverse this terrible mistake. But he said that she can only reverse her looks if she drank the blood of the young. And if she didn't do that, then she would have to live as a monster for the rest of her life. Legend says that she's still out there somewhere, roaming around looking for her next target, all so that she can be young and beautiful again.
A little backstory for setup. My husband died a little bit over a year ago, and he had a substantial life insurance policy as well as successful businesses that I recently sold. My brother recently proposed to his girlfriend, and her family came over so that we could start wedding planning. At dinner, my future sister-in-law pulls out a 3-ring binder and starts handing out information packets about her wedding. She also had a page that listed all of the expenses she expected everyone to contribute to. I looked at her and said, "You expect me to contribute? That's hilarious." And I was met with a stern gaze from my brother. "Oh my god, you're serious." "Yeah, that's not happening." Cue the meltdown from the bride-to-be. Her dad speaks up and says he's giving $70,000 for her to do as she pleases. I get up to leave, and she gets in my face and says it's all my fault. I have the money, so I should be willing to spend it on her because she's going to be family. I just laughed, looked at my brother, and said, "Good luck with all that," and walked out. Ever since then, my future sister-in-law has been blowing me up and calling me names and telling me how awful I am. I know in my heart I'm not the asshole, but my friend seems to think I should contribute just to keep the peace in my family, which I don't really care about at this point. I dated a guy named Joe for 3 months before he had left me to go back to his ex. Right after we broke up, I found out I was pregnant, and now I'm 24 weeks. I let him know, and he was ecstatic. Turns out his girlfriend had fertility issues and would likely never be able to get pregnant naturally, and he has always wanted to be a father. Getting back together was out of the question for both of us, so he's still with his girlfriend. Joe was only allowed at the initial appointment because of COVID, and we found out I was having twins. According to Joe, when he told his girlfriend, she had a mental breakdown about her infertility and she wanted to talk to me. I met them at their house, and his girlfriend Kim stated that she wanted to be involved in my pregnancy because she would eventually be the children's stepmother. She started telling me weird things like I needed to prepare for a home birth and that I need to formula feed so that they could have the babies half of the week, and that she wanted 1 boy and 1 girl. She also wants the kids to call her mama since they would be calling me mommy. I shut her down and said I would make the best choices for my children and my body, and left. Kim continued to be overbearing. She texted me every day about my eating habits, exercise habits, and bitching about how her job. My future mother-in-law is the absolute worst person I've ever met in my life. I'm 30 years old and my boyfriend is 31, and we lived together for 8 months. He's the sweetest and most caring man I've ever met in my life, but the biggest surprise was when I met his mother. I'm a natural redhead, so when we sat down for dinner, she asked me if my parents had the same color hair. And then she proceeds to ask me, does the carpet match the drapes? I looked over to my boyfriend, who seemed equally as shocked, but he didn't say anything. And when I didn't respond back, she said, "Don't worry, I'll ask my son about it later." She then went on to attack my appearance and said my hair was too curly, and I really need to learn how to run a brush through my hair and think about my appearance more when I'm out with your son. When I lost my appetite, she told me it was a good thing that I'm watching what I eat because it would be a shame if I got into bigger. This was my first meeting with this woman, and as soon as I got to my car, I burst into tears until I got home. I told my boyfriend I needed some time. He went into apology overload and just started by sending me flowers to my office every day and leaving me messages. He said he spoke with